They say some places hold memories, that stone and wood can absorb the echoes of the past. I never believed it, not until I found the Monastery of the Unblinking. It wasn't on any map, just a rumor whispered by locals in the nearby village, a place abandoned centuries ago, a place best left alone. As a historian specializing in forgotten architecture, best left alone sounded like an invitation. The journey was arduous, a winding trek through dense, unnaturally quiet woods. Then, it emerged from the mist-shrouded hills like a skeletal beast, a sprawling structure of dark, weathered stone, its bell tower a jagged finger pointing at the bruised sky. The air grew cold, heavy with the scent of damp earth and something else, something ancient and vaguely unsettling. The massive wooden doors were sealed, but a section of the surrounding wall had crumbled, offering a dark, gaping entryway. I squeezed through, my flashlight beam cutting a nervous swath through the gloom. The courtyard was a mess of tangled vines and rubble, but it wasn't the decay that made the hair on my arm stand up. It was the walls. Every surface, from the flagstones under my feet to the towering arches above, was covered in carvings. Thousands of them. And they were all the same, eyes. Wide, staring, meticulously detailed eyes. Some looked human, others belonged to creatures I couldn't name. They were etched into the very fabric of the monastery, their silent, collective gaze following me. It was masterfully creepy, an art installation of the macabre. Or so I told myself. I made my way to the main chapel. The air inside was thick and stagnant. Here, the carvings were even more pronounced. The pews, the altar, the vaulted ceiling, all stared down at me. In the center of the chapel floor was a large, circular stone slab, also covered in eye carvings, spiraling toward a single, larger eye in the middle. It felt like the focal point of all this oppressive observation. I set up my camera and equipment, my rational mind trying to document and analyze. I talked to my camera, describing the architecture, the unique carvings, trying to keep my voice steady. But as the sun began to set, casting long, distorted shadows that made the eyes seem to blink and shift, a primal fear started to creep in. That's when I first heard it. A faint whisper, like wind rustling through dry leaves, yet there was no wind inside the sealed chapel. I froze, straining to listen. It was a soft, sibilant sound, seeming to come from all directions at once. I dismissed it as my nerves, the acoustics of the old building playing tricks on me. I decided to explore the living quarters, hoping to find records, anything to explain this place. I found a library, its shelves mostly collapsed, the books turned to pulp and dust. But in a far corner, a single leather-bound journal lay open on a lectern, miraculously preserved. The script was in archaic Latin, a frantic, spidery scrawl. It was the diary of a monk named Brother Thomas. He wrote of their order, the vigils, or the watchers. They weren't worshipping a god. They were guarding something. They believed an entity, a being of pure sight, a gazer from the void, was trapped beneath the monastery. The carvings, he explained, were not decoration. They were a lock, a visual labyrinth designed to confuse and contain the entity, to perpetually watch it so it could not watch the world outside. The monks had dedicated their lives to this vigil, never blinking, never looking away, for fear of what would happen if the collective gaze of the monastery were to be broken. A cold dread washed over me. I looked around at the thousands of stone eyes. A lock. I was inside a lock. The whispers grew louder, more distinct. They were no longer just sounds. They were forming words, ancient and guttural, that scraped at the edges of my sanity. The temperature plummeted, my breath misting in the flashlight beam. I had to get out. I grabbed the journal and my camera and ran back toward the chapel, the only way out. As I burst through the doorway, I saw something that made my heart stop. The large stone slab in the center of the floor was moving. It was slowly, grindingly, rotating, the spiraling eyes turning like the tumblers of a massive safe. My flashlight beam trembled, dancing across the walls. The carved eyes, they were changing. The stone pupils seemed to dilate, to focus on the moving slab. The whispers coalesced into a single, booming voice that vibrated in my bones, a voice that spoke a name I will never repeat. I didn't wait to see what would happen when the lock finally opened. I scrambled for the broken wall, the sound of stone grinding against stone echoing behind me. I could feel the gaze of the place shifting, the attention of 1,000 carved eyes leaving the slab and fixing on me, the intruder. It was a physical pressure, a weight on my soul. I threw myself through the gap in the wall, scraping my back on the jagged stone, and didn't stop running. I ran blindly through the woods, branches whipping at my face, the booming voice from the monastery fading behind me, replaced by a new sound. A sound like a single, massive eyelid opening for the first time in centuries. I never looked back. I don't know what happened at the Monastery of the Unblinking that night. I don't know if the gazer from the void is free. All I know is that sometimes, in the dead of night, when I close my eyes, I can still feel it. I can feel it watching. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. Stay safe out there.